Okay, boys and girls, let's talk about two new art words, and they are abstract art and realistic art. Now, abstract art and realistic art are two types of art that show either real-looking pictures or pictures that don't look so real. So this example right here, this painting, is an example of a realistic work of art. So these flowers right here in this vase look very real. It almost looks like a photograph, like I could pick it up and hold it. It's so real. So abstract art is the opposite though. It's a type of art that does not look very real. So here is another example of a work of art that is very realistic. This person, which is the Mona Lisa, we know, is a very real looking painting. She looks like she is a real person, like she could almost be a photograph. But let's look at a portrait of a person that is actually abstract. It's not so real looking. So here is a portrait, a painting, by an artist named Pablo Picasso. He's a very famous artist, and he made very abstract looking art. So when we look at this work of art here, we can kind of see some things that we recognize. Right here is a face of a woman. Here's her eye, her mouth, her nose, and her hair. And she's sitting down right here, and her hand is right here holding an instrument. So it does not look as real as this picture of the Mona Lisa, but we can still tell that it is a person, that it is a girl. So it's abstract. It's not super real, but we can still pick out some things that we recognize. It's kind of like a discovery. If I looked at this first, I might not know what it was, but if I looked longer, I could find some things that I recognize. So here's an abstract portrait of a woman. Here's another abstract work of art. Now in this picture, I just see lots of lines and shapes and colors. I can't really pick out anything that I recognize. So this is very abstract. It's not very realistic at all. Here's another picture that's very abstract. Just lots of lines and colors and shapes. I can't really tell anything. I can't see anything that I really recognize. It's just lots of lines and colors and shapes. So this is very abstract. Now this picture, I'm going to let you take a guess as to what you think this is a picture of. So I'm going to pause the video and we can take a guess. So you can raise your hand if you can guess and see if you can find anything in this picture that you recognize. Okay, so we talked about this picture and it looks like it is a picture of a man who is sitting down and there's a guitar down here. So it's another portrait, but it is abstract. We can pick out some things that we recognize, but it still looks very not real. Now let's look at this picture right here. I'm going to pause the video again and see if you can figure out what you think this is a picture of. Is there anything that we recognize in this one? So this is a picture of a woman. Her eyes and her mouth and her hair and her hat. So it's not a real like Mona Lisa, it's very abstract. Now what about this picture? Is there anything in this picture that we can recognize and pick out? This one looks pretty abstract to me, but there's a few things that I recognize. I do see this skull right here. I recognize that. And then if you can tell, if you look very closely, there's a flower vase that's kind of tipping over on this table right here. It's very hard to see because of all the crazy colors and lines and shapes. So this is very abstract. So today, the reason why we're talking about abstract and realistic art is because we're going to try and make our own abstract work of art. So this next picture, I want you to, if you think you know what it is, raise your hand. We're going to see if we can discover what this picture is. So this is an abstract picture of a character that you might recognize from a movie. So raise your hand if you think you know. So if you guessed that this was BB-8, you were right. So I made an abstract picture of BB-8. I took a real picture of BB-8 and I abstracted it. Made it a little bit more of a discovery to figure out what it was. So the reason why we can tell that this is BB-8 though is because we see some of the same colors, some of the same shapes in BB-8, like his eye and his buttons right here and his orange part of his body. So we see lots of colors and lines and shapes that we recognize. They're just kind of all jumbled up. So our goal today is to make an abstract picture from one of these characters. So at your table you'll find lots of different examples of characters that you can pick. So I'm going to show you now how I created my BB-8. So I'm going to start with a blank piece of paper at my table and my worksheet that shows me what I'm trying to abstract. Now we have two tools at our table to help us. These are called viewfinders. Think of these as like little windows. So I'm going to use both of these at different times and put them on my example picture of my BB-8 somewhere. Doesn't matter where. Maybe I'll start right here. So see how it's covering most of the picture and I can only see this little box? That is the one box that I'm going to try and copy anywhere on my picture. So it could be up here, it could be down here, it could be in the middle, it could be anywhere. So what we're going to use today is our markers. Now I know that BB-8 is a certain amount of colors like orange and black and gray, and he's white, and he has a couple little blue and red spots. So I'm going to try and find all those colors from my marker bin that I need to build BB-8. So I have all those colors that I need. Now I'll put my window right back on BB-8. So this is the box that I'm going to try and copy somewhere on my picture. So I'm going to start with my black marker because I see some black outlines here. So I'm going to start by trying to sketch out those black lines that I see. There's a big curve like this, a small curve, and then I think there's two gray boxes right here and right there. So I'm going to stop now. I've done all the black lines. Now I'm going to switch to my orange because I know that this area right here is orange. And this area right here is very orange. And I know that these two boxes right here are gray, so I'll use my gray to fill those boxes in. Okay, it looks like I've copied the box pretty well. It's almost exactly the same. So now I'll move my box to a new spot on BB-8. Maybe I'll pick this spot right here with his two little eyes. So I'll pick a new spot anywhere on my paper. Maybe I could even do it all the way down here. So I think I'll start with that eyeball, that big circle. So I'll use my black marker to kind of outline it. And there's a big black dot right here. Now it looks kind of grayish in that area, so I think I'm going to use the gray to fill in this rest of the part here. Okay, now another eye over here. It's a little bit smaller, and it's right next to the other one, but there's a little black dot right here, and the rest of it looks like it's a little bit of a grayish color, so I'll fill that in gray. Now I see another dot over here, so I'll copy that one. That one's black outline, and then again it's gray inside. Okay, now I see this line right here that kind of shows the curve of BB-8's head, so I think I'll make that curve right here, and then curve around like here. And there's a little gray line down here. Okay, now I think there's a few more lines, so I'll use my gray to show those lines. And there's some orange parts. There's a little orange part on his head right here. There's a little orange square over here that I see, and a little orange square over here. So this is pretty simple. I'm just copying really simple shapes that I see. When I use this little box, it really helps me to see just the little shapes, and it makes it easier to draw when I'm just looking at tiny shapes. Okay, now that I finished that spot, I'm going to move it over to a new spot. Maybe I really like this spot right here with the blue and red buttons, so I'll copy that spot next anywhere that I want. So how I will know if I've finished is if I've covered pretty much my whole paper and I've moved my box at least 5 or 6 different times and copied different parts. So now when I compare this, I can really tell that it's BB-8 because I see lots of the same shapes and colors in BB-8. Okay, so that's our goal today. Pick a character and make sure you copy at least 5 or 6 different boxes onto your white paper using the same colors and same shapes that you see in your picture, in your realistic picture.